All right, so this video, I'm going to show you how to connect your wired IP camera. In this case, we have actually a mini dome, and this is a PTZ, to a wireless access point that's going to communicate back to your NVR. So the first thing you do is understand what we have here. This is a radio. It has colored signals on there right now. That means it's actually synced back to a paired radio of the same kind, so that this signal meter, the green light, shows me it has the strongest signal, just like a cell phone signal. If you only see yellow or red light, that means you're getting a poor signal. Now, the assembly of this radio is, it comes disassembled. You have to take your antenna and carefully thread it back on top. This is a weatherproof radio. And the first step is mount the radio and connect the cable. So the radio has a Cat 5 or a Cat 6 cable you can connect. In this case, you can have up to about a 100-foot run if you need it, going back to its power supply. I'll get back to that in just a second. All right, so the important thing is make sure you connect your Cat 5 or Cat 6 cable here. Put this cover on. If you don't do that, then you're gonna get water leaking into your unit, and make sure it snaps all the way in. In this case, I'm not going to. There is a little bit of a entryway for the cable to come in and make sure it snaps all in. I'm gonna leave this open because in the end, I'm going to disassemble this. So here, the first thing is you connect your access point to one cable, however long it is, up to 100 feet, going back into the PoE side of your injector. It's very important you plug this and only the access points cable into the PoE side of the injector. Otherwise, if you plug a camera into the PoE, it'll get fried. Second, there's another connection on the injector called LAN. That means local area network. It's to connect a non-powered device, meaning a device that will not get power from this unit. In this case, I'm going to connect my camera. So let's go back and look at the camera. First, I have my camera. Of course, you would be mounting your camera and threading the pigtail through the wall. Once you threaded the pigtail through the wall, and it's on the other side, let's say, of your garage, you will plug in this unit. This is called a passive PoE adapter. It has a 12-volt DC power jack to plug into a DC power plug to plug into the 12-volt DC jack on the camera. Second, this is a RJ45 connector, a LAN connector or Ethernet connector. Plug that together. Now this happens to be a PoE camera, but we're choosing not to power it with PoE because of the constraints we have connecting back to this device. Now on the other side of this connector is going to be another paired one. The difference is this one has a jack, not a plug. So let's look at the difference closely. This is a male power plug. This is a DC female power jack. Male power plug goes into the camera. The end that has the jack goes next to your PoE injector. The Ethernet cable or Ethernet side or network cable connector, whatever you want to call this, plugs into the LAN side of the injector. Once you've done that, you can then run a cable up to 300 feet in between the camera and these two passive PoE adapters. That's theoretical. We suggest no more than 100 feet length of cable. So we will provide usually a 25-foot length of cable with these setups. So you should have a 25-foot length of cable from the access point going back to its injector to connect into the PoE side, and 25 feet length of cable to plug in between the two passive PoE adapters. For my demonstration, I'm going to use a short cable. Connected it here, camera, passive PoE adapter, cable. Then that connects to the other end of the passive PoE adapter, and I've got this here. So what does that mean? I've got a power and a network connector. The power will connect to a power supply that we will provide you for powering the camera. This is a 12 volts DC power supply, 1 amp. This is what the camera needs to be powered. That's why it's very important you connect only a 12 volt DC power supply into this end so the camera gets it. Otherwise, if you provide it incorrect power, either from a power supply you have lying around, or you plug this into the PoE injector's PoE connector, it will fry the camera. So please make sure you take this step carefully. Now, I will plug this into my wall outlet, which I will not show you here. So now I've got power taken care of, and what I will be doing is connecting this to the LAN side. So in summary, the connections are PoE goes to the access point, the LAN goes to the camera through the passive PoE adapter. I'm only using this passive PoE adapter so that I can neatly supply power to both devices, and these two devices will be outside, mounted on a wall or a garage wall, and all I need is to thread the cables through the wall for the pigtail of the camera and the Cat5 cable for the access point, and then all the way back to my power source inside the garage. I just have a length of Cat5 cable going back. Now the other end of the access point injector is this sort of weird looking power plug. It uses a very proprietary power plug, and it comes with the power cord for it, and you would plug that here and then plug this injector into your 110 outlet. So you will need two 110 outlets to achieve this. One for this unit and one for the power supply I showed you before that's connected here, powering the camera. So now, in the end, you will see this unit turn on, flashing green, until you have it connected to its paired access point. In my case, I've already done all the configuration. We usually will configure it for customers if they request it, and we will do it at a nominal charge of a configuration fee per device. And it is already paired to it. Let's just give it a minute, and you will see its signal turn from a flashing green light into some colored metered signals indicating the level, like I showed you in the beginning of the video. Here, now it has paired. That's a successful connection. Granted, you have the other paired radio on. Now, in case you're wondering how to mount this, we have mounts to snap this into and then mount it outside on the wall. You can also, that same mount will also work with windows too. It comes with a suction cup device to mount to a window or a piece of glass. Now, this is weather resistant as long as you put this cover on and you're not mounting it upside down, because if you do, then upside down, water will eventually leak through this hole and damage the RJ45 connector. Always mount it right side up, antenna pointing up. Do not mount it sideways, because then the signal will not emit correctly and get to your camera's receiver or your NVR's receiving access point. Always mount it this way, right side up. All right, on the NVR side, you'll have another access point. In this case, we're using a little mini access point so that it's of a small form factor and it can sit right next to your NVR recorder. Here, you can see it has a PoE port on the left-hand side and a LAN port on the right-hand side. The PoE port is what gets power. We will only be using that. So what you'll be doing is first taking a network cable and plugging it into the PoE side. That's one. Second, we'll move this aside for now and we'll focus on its power supply. Power supply is a PoE injector. It injects passive PoE, so it's very important you only use it to supply PoE power to these radios. I will plug the PoE, a cable going from the PoE on the access point into the PoE going onto the injector. Next, I will take another cable and connect it into the LAN side of the injector. and plug it into the back of my NVR. Now I happen to have an NVR with a choice of ports. I can plug it into either the LAN port or into one of the PoE ports. Because I want to be able to use the LAN port exclusively for networking this NVR to my network so I can connect to it remotely, I will not plug this in there. I want my cameras to also be on a separate network so they're secure and so no one can mess around with them. I will use the PoE port. Now in this case, we've already configured all the cameras and the access points to work with each other. It takes an hour or two, or sometimes several hours, depending on the number of cameras you have. So let's do a recap of what we have. We're going to work from the NVR over to the radio. Cable going from the PoE port, port 1 in this case, short network cable going into the LAN side of the injector, and then another cable going from the PoE side of the injector to our wireless radio. Your radio could be like a small one like this one, or it could be one that's an outdoor unit. This is great if you want to have additional cameras inside your home or office. The LAN cable on this will be left empty. Do not use it. There is a little connector on the back of this thing to connect it to an injector directly. We find this to be a very insecure, unstable connection, so that's why we decided to use our own Cat5 cables. Now, of course, you need to supply power to the injector. There's a proprietary power cord for this. Connects to the back, and you would then connect this to your 110 outlet. Additional connections on the back of the NVR will be a power cable going here. The NVR will come with its own power supply. That is a special connector to plug in here. I'll show you that. Here is the special connector, and it kind of looks like a regular 12 volts, but it's not. This power supply is actually a 48 volt power supply. So it converts 110 to 48 volts. For the PoE power supply, it's able to supply PoE power if needed. And it's 802.3 AF/AT compliant, so the PoE jacks here will not fry our cameras. But they're not for the access points. You need to make sure you follow the directions provided in this video. Of course, this power supply will then connect to another outlet. So the connections that are left is a mouse connector here, an HDMI connector, the mouse. You can put a flash drive to back up short segments of video. You've got a HDMI, you've got VGA in case you don't have an HDMI compatible monitor, RCA audio in and output for bidirectional talk with select cases with your own device and own compatible devices. And of course, you've got another network cable. This is the one where you would connect a cable from here going into your router. And the next clip, we're going to show you with it already turned on and how to control the camera. So once you connected the proper connections to the correct ports, you connect the DVR, or NVR in this case, to a monitor that supports 1080p resolution. That's the default that we will ship these units out, or on certain cases at 720p. You'll see a screen like this as soon as you turn it on, and most importantly, your wireless radios connect to each other and they're within range. The video will show up from a camera, and in this case, for this customer, we've configured one camera that happens to be that dome I showed you in step 1 of this video. And the exact same equipment that's shown in the first 2 steps is being used here. Now, I will log in to main menu. It'll ask you for your password, of course, as the first thing, and I've already entered that. Now go to camera, and here you can see what devices are connected. And I have already connected our one camera in here that's set to a 10.1.1.11 IP, and it's been set up and stored in the NVR's memory. So when this customer turns the unit on, he will see his camera pre-connected, and there should be a green light. Granted, all the connections were done correctly, nothing was damaged, and the wireless systems are within range of each other. So now let's take a look at what we can do here. We've got the camera in full screen view. Let's check out its resolution. You can go to main menu, and you can go to camera. You can go to encode and check its resolution. It's set to 1080p. You can do other things like for example, changing the image, and you can flip it. In this case, so I can show you how it looks right side up. Here we go. Now, since this is a dome camera, I can click on the PTZ function and I can move it right and left. And it has a small amount of zoom. Now, mind you, this is all being done wireless, thanks to our radios that we showed you before. And here's the actual radio here. Here we see that radio that we had before, and it is connected to the NVR. Everything is going towards the back. Of course, it looks like a wire, a little bit mess of a wire, but follow the steps we showed you in the first and second steps, and you should be able to get quality just like this. Let's go take a look back at our screen, and you'll see that the quality for the wireless is phenomenal. This is sitting inside our offices, and we're looking outside. So keep in mind, with wireless, depending on the amount of cameras you have and the resolution you're doing, there will be a certain amount of lag. So wireless is it's the territory with wireless equipment that it's never as good as wired, but this is as good as it gets. So of course you'll see some video. In our example, we're sitting right near a window. The camera doesn't have WDR, so that's a very specialized type of big dome camera that lets you see both indoors and out. But here you can see, if you were to place this outside, the phenomenal quality of video you can get out of this camera. So to troubleshoot, let's say you connect and you're not seeing any of your cameras, or you're manually adding or re-adding cameras. Granted, your wireless radios are paired with each other and the radios show a signal meter that they're connected well. Then here's what you need to do to reconnect your cameras. First, log into main menu and log in as the admin user, and this is password. You will find a label on top of your recorder that states what the password is for the admin user and the 888 user. So first thing we'll do is go to camera, registration, and then do device search. Depending on the configuration and firmware of the units, this may or may not show you anything. So you do a manual add. Select private. Type in the IP address. There's going to be a IP address provided to you if we've configured the units for you and you paid for the configuration, an IP address of what we set each of your cameras to. I put the IP address here. I took it off the label of the camera or the guide we provide you. TCP port that's stated in usually by default is 377 unless we state it in the guide. And then the password of the camera. We usually leave it as admin, especially in cases where they're all on the internal network on the NVR, like in our case for this demonstration. And then we hit connect, apply, OK. You'll see that there's a red dot and it turns green, and here on the left hand side you can see that my videos appeared. Now, just to show you, using this wireless example we've done, I'm going to add a second camera. Using one radio connected to the back of the NVR, its PoE port, or you could reconfigure devices and, if you please, into the back of the LAN port. And let's add a second camera. Let's go back. You see 2 green dots, that means 2 cameras. We've got 2 cameras here, and now you can actually view either one by one. In this case, this is the PTZ we showed you before. And here is the second camera. Now the beauty of the system is these cameras are streaming continuously 2 different streams of video into the NVR, and they get recorded independently. So if I were to go to search, here, select my cameras, and let's say select a time span, 30-minute interval, and here you see those 2 different streams being here, and I can double click, enlarge it. This is going back in time. Thanks for watching this video.